All right, you guys, welcome back to the Low Bottom High Rise podcast with me, your host, Moira Casaba. And I have been dying to have this guest on the show. Shamina Taylor's in the house today. Shamina, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's very few people that I go down truly the rabbit hole of consuming their content. And I don't know if I've even told you this story, but do you know how crazy it was that when I don't even know how I found you on social, but you spoke my language so clearly. You know, it's one of those people you're like, how do we not know each other? And we have a really good friend in common. Did you know that?
We do. Yes. She told me that she knew you. And I was like, well, if you know her, then you got to be okay. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's how I felt. But isn't that so true? It's like energy attracts like energy,
Absolutely. She's such
you
a boss.
know?
Yeah.
Yes. And so, I mean, girl, when I say I went down the rabbit hole, like I didn't just like scroll your social. I was like unlocking and purchasing courses and content.
I
That's
love
how
it.
much
I
you
love it.
speak to my soul. And I keep laughing about this because I'm like, I literally am your perfect target market. Like I am your client. I am your like in a box, here I am.
I love
So
it.
can you tell my audience who you are and what you do?
Hi there. I am Shamina Taylor, and I am the host of the Unapologetically Rich podcast. We just rebranded that. I'm also the CEO and owner of the Quantum Woman brand. I help high achieving women have it all. Basically, if you want to have as much money as you want to have the life that you want to live, I am your mentor. And one of the things that I really love about what I do is I really help women move from that masculine state into their feminine state and run their business that way and become unapologetically rich. You get to have all the wealth, you get to have the jet, you get to have whatever it is that you want. I'm here to lift the limits for you so that you can get to that next level because there's always a next level when you're a high achiever.
Oh, so good. So good. You know, about 5 years ago, I used to tell my husband all the time, I'm like, really don't want much. I just want a beach house. And he's like, just a beach house. And then, of course, we got the beach house. And now I always say, I don't want much. I just want the private jet. Like,
A G550 would be nice. And I keep researching them and like that's what I mean, we're gonna have it. So it doesn't really matter. Like it's on its way.
yeah, it's coming. It's coming. So I am so into what you teach that I actually did a podcast. I'm dropping a podcast episode in another week or two that I already recorded about this idea of masculine, feminine, right? Like, what does that even mean? Most people
Sure.
are like, huh, I don't even know what you're talking about. I've done my own work around it. And like I said, when I said I am your typical overachiever, type A, Enneagram 3, go, 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 can't slow down. My identity was always been in my achievements from as far back as I can remember. But I going into your work, I'm like, oh, I recognize where a little feminine comes in there and why I have received so much. But good God, how much more could I receive if I actually tapped into that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why you are my ideal client.
Yes.
So what I've stumbled upon is that I found I'm a former attorney. And so I was in a very masculine dominant world. I'm also someone who had a lot of trauma growing up. And when you've had any type of and trauma doesn't have to be physical abuse or it doesn't have to be, really heavy stuff. It could be like your mom left you in the aisle in Kmart, like, and you have abandonment wounds. So, I feel like we have three core wounds: abandonment, betrayal, and unworthiness. Those things come up and they fuel us throughout our lives. They also affect our money. And what I found is I was trying to figure myself out. Like, how could I have been so successful? Like, I had the perfect life, the mansion, the two kids, boy and a girl, married the guy. We went to Europe in the summertime and we went to the Caribbean in the winter. Like, we had the life, right? I had all the things, but yet I was missing something so deeply inside of me, which was happiness. But yet I was such a high functioning person where I can get everything done, even in the midst of what was going on in my life. But I wasn't happy. Like, I was not fulfilled. And I was always looking for what was next. Every time I hit a goal, I was like, okay, all right, what's next? Even when I was planning my daughter's like second birthday party, I was like, okay, we're just gonna have to finish this up really quickly. Like, what's next? Like, I never could be present in my life. I never could slow down because slowing down would mean I'd have to like face me. I'd have to be present with me. I'd have to be present with the, the things from the past. I'd be present with my nervous system. I have, so being a high functioning, busy person was like a trauma response. So I could get so much more done. I am still high functioning. I'm still a high performer, but I have a different way of doing it. What I found is women who are seeking validation or they're out there, I have 3 degrees. I was very successful as an attorney. What we're doing is we're trying to fill one of those core wounds or all of them at the same time. But they fuel us and they're actually a great thing because it keeps us going, going, going. And that's that hardcore masculine energy, right? And doing, 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 doing. But to be and be present and to feel my emotions, that wasn't something that I was taught or that I could even actually wrap myself around because feeling my emotions would mean dealing with myself and feeling with all the things that, because I was like an ice queen, I would like shove things down, even though I was very loving to my friends. I had tons of friends, loving to my husband and my children. I wasn't open to receiving love or really giving the type of love that I give now because I would just feel an emotion, shove it down, or someone, upset me, I would just cut them off. I was very quick to do those kind of things because that's how I handled my emotions so I could keep going. So what I found is when women come to me, they have the life, usually they're married, they have the kids, they're successful, but they also know something's missing. They're exhausted. They're still getting up at the crack of dawn, doing all kinds of things. And I'm like, I can't starting before 12 for me. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is so much,
Okay, can
like
we pause for a second? Do
yes,
you
yeah,
remember this on Instagram? I texted you.
yeah. I was like, I
And
don't
I
like,
was like, we're trying to coordinate time zones and we are both really busy, right? We've got very full lives. And I was like, gosh, I don't usually ever record a podcast that early, but I'm like, shoot, this is like just hard to get our time zones coordinated. So I was like, you just want to do early? And you were like, do you mean like 7 a.m.?
I
And
was
then
like,
I start going into your work and I was like, oh my God, I feel like I just exposed myself.
you did. I was like, oh, we got work to do with her. I was like,
Yes,
yeah.
totally.
And because it's like I used to have a friend who would quote unquote be feminine, but yet she still does calls at like before 8. I'm like, lady, like we don't need to do that. That's like an old programming that you have there. Like you have to get X done, or if you don't get up early, you are lazy. And it's all comes back down to like being in that suffering mode because when we're suffering, we're having success. And so what I
Taking
found
notes
was,
here.
what's that?
I'm taking my own notes
Yeah.
here.
And what I found was that if I could figure out why she was in such a do mode, I could then unwind it and get her into a be mode. And most of the time, when she's in that do mode, she's got a shield on her heart. So
Mhm.
she's not very open emotionally to receiving love, money, people, things the way that she should, because she's the one that does everything for everybody. And so when you learn to really, tap into that emotions, which I believe is the feminine, which I believe is our spiritual self, which I believe is our connection to the quantum field, or it's your, your relationship with your faith or whatever it is that you identify with, but it's a strong knowing everything's going to be okay without you having to try and like control every little last detail about what's happening in your life, because that's what she does. Because when you've been through a certain amount of pain, suffering, and um, not the best experiences in your life, you try to stop them from happening again. So you try to control your environment which I did. I was like, if someone wasn't nice to me, I'd get rid of them because that was like a way I controlled my environment. If I don't like something, I got rid of it because I'm like, everything has to be nice and neat and pretty. And
Mhm.
so that I can live and function. And what I'm trying to teach people now is that guess what? You get to have the emotions, you get to feel all the things. I call it my emotional mastery program. You get to feel all the things. And when you can master your emotions, then you can handle anything that life like sends your way. And the way we create in this world is through emotional state. And
Yeah.
many of the times women are not tapping into the thing that they were given to create. Like we are emotional beings. And we were told in the man's world, don't be so emotional. Don't be like a woman. Don't be like this. And meanwhile, those are the things that, like now that I've tapped into it, I realize I'm unstoppable. So if I can get her out of that do or have her go into her feminine first, then take a masculine, you know, movement in her life and business, she's going to change. Women have their husbands coming at them nonstop. And like, they're like, I'm not responsible for all these babies that are being made because if they're still in the baby making stage, but they're having more sex, they're making more money because I believe money for high achieving women is masculine. The way we look at it is masculine and the way we receive it is feminine. And if we're constantly chasing the money all the time, what we're doing is we're pushing it away. We're just struggling. We're like trying to tell a guy, I'm coming for you. I'm trying to
Right.
find you. Instead of being in that feminine, like goddess Cleopatra energy, we're just like, feed me my grapes, like just come to me. I'm the one. The men want to hunt and chase. And most of the time these women are emasculating their husbands, emasculating their business, emasculating, their team. They can't have great teams. They have high turnovers with their team. They don't have great support because they don't know how to do this one thing.
I mean, I have goosebumps head to toe, like head to toe. So I want to touch on something because for me, this was such a wall. And I feel like you are the only person that broke that down for me. Every single time that I have kind of rubbed up against this work, right, with the feminine, quote unquote, it makes me so uncomfortable because of what society has created in my own mind, like what I've created by society in my own mind, that feminine means, oh, I have to be meek or weak or passive or less than. And that is not what we're talking about at all. Right. And it has been like rewiring at its finest when I'm trying to rewrite that story of just the definition of what the feminine means.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's their intuition. Like all the women I work with that are high achievers are very intuitive. It's just
Mhm.
they don't always listen because their logical brain will come in and be like, this doesn't make any sense. I need evidence. I need to logically rethink. I need to overanalyze, over situation, over everything. And then they're like, they do the thing that goes against their intuition. Then they're like, gosh, I knew this in the beginning. Why did I do this? Because
Yeah.
they sit there and they try to, use their human,
Mhm.
to try and fix a very spiritual connected knowingness about them. So I feel like being in your feminine is being vulnerable, like sharing stories,
Mhm.
showing your emotions. And when you can be vulnerable, what happens is that you've disarmed anybody having power over you
Yeah.
because you're able to, it's, the four agreements, he talks about taking the mask off. I took the mask off. I no
Yeah.
longer have to worry about what people think about me. I am authentically myself. This is who I am. And there's a power in it. And so being vulnerable for many women is really hard because it's showing a sign of weakness, asking for help. This is one of the top things that I teach most of my women to do. Just even if you're getting, none of us, go to the grocery store anymore, but if you did, you would ask, hey, and you need help. Could you mind helping
Yeah.
me with the groceries instead of you carrying all 25 bags into the car yourself without the cart because you can do it,
Right.
because, like, give me the challenge. I'm up for it, like, because
Yeah.
that's what we do. We're psychos that way because we're just like, okay, I'm going to do the hard thing to show everybody I can do the hard thing
Yes.
because that's my validation and that's where I get my stripes and, like, I win. And really, I'm over here waking up whenever the hell I want to, making millions of dollars, still living my life, still having this, ability to go to the gym. I was a bodybuilder for so many years, and like that's a very masculine way, but it was grounding me in the gym, like working out. But there's still like a flow to it, like going my infrared sauna. Like I have a balance when I do things. It's balancing both of the energies. It's not just poo-pooing one, but
Right.
it's doing that. Most women are in their wounded masculine when they're doing things, they're proving things, they're in
Yeah.
competition with everybody else instead of just themselves. They're they're trying to do things in a toxic way as opposed to, like, here's a plan, I'm going to go execute it.
Right.
And most people in the real world would be like, what are you talking about? So I have to change the language for them to
Yeah.
understand this, because if I say, oh, it's your trauma that's driving you, they'd be like, what? Until they hear it a couple more times. And I'm like, oh, so we have three core wounds, abandonment, betrayal, and unworthiness. And I can look in your business right now or in your life and tell you which one or if all of those that you're actually, that are actually affecting you. If you're worried about money leaving you, or you're worried about always when you spend money's going to go away, I can probably dig in and you got like abandonment story or abandonment experience that's
Mhm.
fueling that. Somebody, cheated on you or betrayed you. I bet you're worried money will never come back, like it's gone forever, or that it comes up and down. Like your business probably has ups and downs. It's not a consistent cash flow. Another one is like unworthiness. You're probably undercharging for what you're doing in your business. So you're always looking at what the other people can pay. And you're probably like at a tenth of what you could be making in your business because of that core wound. And so we go break it down and then we figure it out. So
Wow.
it's because I had to do it for myself. And then
Right.
studying like hundreds and thousands of women, the pattern's there. So as long as you
Yeah.
follow, as long as you follow what you need to do, you can break the pattern.
You have like literally unlocked this code, really, truly. I mean, there is so much here. And what I love is when I'm hearing what you're saying, it's like the proof is in the pudding for me because I can see where the blocks are for myself, but I can also see that, for instance, let's go back a decade when I like kind of broke through to that seven-figure point. It was literally when I decided to share my story on social media, right? So it was like that step into the vulnerable, which you're saying, like, this is in the bucket that you've been
Yeah.
missing. That's when I broke through to that seven-figure point. Like, duh. Now I'm like, this all makes perfect sense. And I teach a concept that I always call listen to the whisper. So I am super in tune to my intuition. It's just so fascinating. And I'm only sharing this because I bet my audience can relate. Like, I'm so in tune with my intuition that I don't question it. I'm like, if my gut says it, I don't have to think about it. I just take action. But then I still have this other side of me that is just driving, 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 going, 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 like always having to launch something, always having to create something, always having to stay busy. It's like I've got pieces of it, but I definitely don't have other pieces of it. Right. And I'm sure
Right.
that's what you find working with your
Yeah.
client.
Absolutely. I just had a client come join me recently, and she's very, very successful in her business. Her husband's an ex NBA player. And she came for the children, like the aspect, because this stuff trickles down to your children. Like my kids
Yeah.
have such amazing wealth consciousness. Their emotional intelligence is next level. They both have healthy relationships at a young age,
Yeah.
with their partners. And so, and they're both driven and very, very, very like they have the success for them. And she wanted to come to have that balance in her marriage because she knew she was emasculating her husband. Because this is one of the things that powerful women do, and we don't even realize we're doing it, is we're not like allowing the man to be the man because we're telling
Yes.
him what to do. We're
Yeah.
like, you didn't do it right enough. You're criticizing. And if you just take that concept and rely it, I can see it in your business. You're doing that with money in your business. And so it's like once I work on her in one aspect, it's almost like it'll fix itself in other places. He just
Yeah.
took her away on this amazing birthday party, rented a private jet, got all of her friends together, and he'd never done that before. She's like, I'm receiving like you've never seen. And she's like, I cannot believe how my life is changing in such a short period of time because we just don't know what we don't know, right?
Right.
That's it.
So let
Um,
me ask you this question. Why is it so freaking hard? Right. Like, okay, so I'm going to give this little example. And I actually shared about this on a podcast when I was talking about this. My, this was a decade ago, and this was so foreign to me. This is why I remember it 10 years later. My mother-in-law came to visit, and she pulls into the driveway, and our house was built up at the time, like up a flight of stairs. And she walks in and sits down, and my husband like gives her a glass of wine, and she's just sitting there chatting. And I'm like, how are you? And then my husband, without any communication, goes out the front door. And I'm like, kind of like, where's he going? And comes up with her luggage. And I was like, I have never not brought all of my luggage into the house. Like, why is it so hard for us to allow someone to do something like that for us?
Yeah, it's the receiving. It's the I don't want you to have anything on me. I can do everything myself. And
Yeah,
it's the prove it energy. And your husband knew to do that because that's the way his mom raised him. That
right.
like he's always been serving mom in that sense, which he's supposed to do. My son does the same thing. We come home from a trip, he takes my luggage all the way up to the room. And so it's just, I mean, because I've raised him to be in his masculine. She raised him to be in his masculine, but he's also drawn to really strong women because his mother is strong too.
Mhm.
But it's just being able to, this is like a practice. Like, would you mind? You always have to invite the masculine into a question and an
Mhm.
invitation. Would you mind going to get my luggage for me? And when you start doing that, it'll just be, he wants to serve you.
Right.
He wants to protect you. That's what fuels him. He wants to feel needed. He doesn't want to be criticized. And men will screw things up all the time. And we just have to kind of let them figure out how to fix it too. They'll never look at the directions to put together a table. They'll do it the first time their way, and then they'll realize, oh, I've like didn't do this right. And you can't come in there and say, well, you did it wrong, which I used to do. You have to be like, all right, he's going to figure it out. And he surely does. And it's like the less that we can criticize them, the more that we're like, it's like we judge too much. And this is how we've been raised. So if you've had a critical mother, or if you've been criticized, or you've put yourself into a place where you can't just fully accept who you are, you're going to look at what other people do and it's never going to be enough. It's going to be like, oh, well, look what they're doing. like they're not doing it as good as me. And this is with the team. Well, I'm going to do it better than them. Like I'm going to, then they micromanage their team. I can't tell you how many successful women do not have great teams because they don't know how to receive support. They don't know how to receive help because they're too busy telling everybody what to do and they're not letting people do their job. They're not staying in their lane. And it's a hard thing. So we have to go figure out what the story is. I got to go figure out, like, why is it that you have this wall up? Why do you have this block? And then I bring you through a process to get you through the other side, because it's not just going to be one thing. It's going to be a culmination of things that has been compounded over the years since that initial event happened. And it could be just the way you were raised too. Most women that I've worked with, they're athletic. They've been athletes. They don't just sit around. They're doing other things in life. Like, they are high performers. I help them become the highest performers that they can be. And even though I'm named a wealth expert, really what I do is high performance. How do you get the best out of each area of your life, but not do it in a masculine state, do it in the feminine. So the first thing I would do if you want someone to help you is to ask yourself, would it be easy for me to receive? Can I receive? I just talked to a client yesterday and we had to go through an exercise because she's like, it is so hard to receive. I even messed up receiving. I said, well, do you want it to be easy? She's like, yeah. She's like, since I started working with you, money, everything's coming in, but I feel like it's so hard. How can I handle it? I said, well, what do you want? I want it to be easy. I said, let's go through this. I go, what would easy look like for you? And what comes up is I need to exchange something when someone's giving it to me. So I did this all the time. I still have to work on this on a daily basis. I was at a studio in South Carolina and I was pulling my bags into the Fox studio, and the producer said, "Can I help you with that?" And I was like, "Oh, I got it." And I was like, "No, you can have it." Because I was like ready to say no, because
Yeah.
we don't want to owe something. And then I use this example all the time. If you use it when I was on the TV segment, it's because we're conditioned to be like, I'm a big girl. Because big girls
Right.
don't cry. Big girls don't have emotions. Big girls do. And in order for us to keep up with men, the way we've been able to be identified with that we are equals or that we are just as good as they are, we've been trained and we've been programmed by our parents, by society, that we have to also do what they do. But
Right.
that's been the false thing. That's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, that's crazy. And so true. You're absolutely right. And I think for me, in your work that I've dug into, the word receive is like the most powerful word. Because
Powerful.
again, I think in the past, I've been like, oh, I have to like step into my feminine. I need to be more passive. I need to be more. And I'm like, I can't do this. And now I'm like, I mean, I teach the law of attraction, so I get receiving, right? Like I really understand that from an energetic standpoint. And that's the energy I need to shift into. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. I just keep defaulting, right? To the old wiring. And
Right.
so here's another question for you, because this also came up in your work for me that I was like, oh, I think I need to dig deeper into this. By the way, you're hired. Wounded masculine versus wounded feminine. Can you like define that? Can we kind of go down
Sure.
that rabbit hole a little bit?
Sure. So when you have wounded masculine energy, you are not in a healthy masculine. This could be for men and women.
Mhm.
Toxic masculinity would be like those macho dudes or guys that are narcissists that are like proving, but they don't have emotional mastery. They don't have emotional intelligence to the
Mhm.
level beyond their 8 or 9 year old self that's pretty running their show, right? And when you're in a wounded masculine state, you haven't tapped into the emotions and emotional intelligence. So you're
Mhm.
doing a lot of do to prove. It's like validation. I came up with this quote a long time ago, and actually Cardi B put it on her Instagram, and then Kim Kardashian, everybody was sharing it. Stop seeking validation from those who are not qualified to give it. In the
Mhm.
moment that I realized I was seeking validation from my father
Mhm.
and he wasn't qualified to give it to me anymore, I
Right.
realized that I was moving out of my wounded masculine into a healthy masculine state. It's trusting that you can be in a place that when like, give me an example, when you've done something in your business, say you put an offer out and you've done all the things on the checklist, you leave it alone. You walk away from it. You go have dinner, which I usually do. If I put an offer out or I open up cart, I go. I don't sit there and watch to see who's bought.
Yes.
but that's what that wounded masculine will do. It'll try to over control and over analyze a situation and not trust. Because
Yeah.
that's where, when you have a healthy masculine, you're trusting. It's you're not taking the intuition and bringing it in to the wounded masculine. You're like, you're still in the, I need evidence, I need proof, is this going to work? And then you're constantly guarding your heart from disappointment. So you stay at a lower level. This is the upper limits. And oh my gosh, I forget the book. I recommend it all the time. But women and people who create success ceilings, this is why, because they're constantly, they don't have the emotional feeling to trust that, okay, I can go beyond this. They're always trying to see logically where everything is, and they're actually limiting how much success they can have when you're in the wounded masculine, because it's just A, B, C, equals whatever.
Right.
Like, you're just doing stuff. So in the wounded feminine, it's a lot of like sister wounds, having difficult relationships with women, a lot of competition, not trusting that women are going to, be there for you, because perhaps a female figure in your life or somewhere along the line was not, a safe place to be. And that's what it comes down to with both of these, is the safety. And maybe your mother criticized you a lot. And I mean, looking back on my life, my mom still does it, and it's just a natural thing. Like, she'll be like, "Oh, you're getting 5 pounds." She just does it because she wants me
Yeah.
to be, healthy. But at this end of the day, what it does is it creates us this feeling of not good enough. And
Yeah.
so when you don't have this good enough feeling, it actually affects all the things that you're doing in your life. So when you're in your wounded feminine, you are not letting the emotions run the show. Your feminine energy is not at a place where it's in its power to be vulnerable, to be seen, to be witnessed. And this is why a lot of people play small. Because when
Yeah.
women come to me, they're like, I know I'm supposed to be famous. I know I'm supposed to be like making $10 million a year. And I'm like, let's go. So
Yeah.
what I do is I help her work through that wounded feminine and the wounded masculine, so that she can now be like, look at me. I'm ready to be seen. When you're in that wounded feminine, you're always trying to wear a mask. You're always trying to pretend to be something you're not, in the sense that you don't want anybody to know the truth of who you are, And then your relationships with the other feminine energies in your life, you'll see that they're strained. I believe, just by talking to you really quickly, like, you're a woman of abundance. Like, you believe abundance. I don't feel like you would ever be in competition with another woman. If she's successful, you would be celebrating her. Like, Rebecca's the same way, like,
Yeah.
that's like a key thing. But where it would come from is, oh, she's doing it, like, I need to be doing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of thing. Like, how come
Yeah.
she's doing it? Like, I need to be doing it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so when you get to the state of like, of course I'm doing it. Of course we're all doing it. That's the shift, instead
Yes.
of like the envy. And so it's such a big, long conversation. There's so many
Right.
different
Right.
facets
Right.
of it,
Right.
but I literally take that and I apply it to money. And I apply
Yes.
it, and money, wealth, it's the receiving all the things. It's, your relationships with your children's change, your relationship with your significant other, your friendships change. My circle is really, really, really small now, but like, women have to have a certain requirement to be there, be
Yeah.
my friend, where it's like she has to come in her power too. It's just a different type of thing. But hopefully it gives you a little bit. I mean, I have a little chart that shows what wounded feminine looks like, what wounded masculine, and I can give
Yeah.
it to you. But it's it's you just don't realize that you're in that wounded feminine state where you don't ask for help.
Right.
You push people away. You're not willing to um show emotions, down to the, like, even on Facebook, I can tell when someone's in it. When a woman's just liking a post and she doesn't love it, I already know her shield's up, her heart's out, her heart is not available, there's no emotions, like, and she's using like the emoji, like the
Yeah.
that emoji, or if she's using the thumb, like, I'm like, oh, we're way back, like, I was just away for senior trip with my son, and I can't, that's why I'm so tanned. But one of the moms there, lovely lady, she got there a little bit late, and she was like, this is an example of the wounded and masculine. I'm going to show you and how it shows up in money. She got there a bit late in the day, and she was so frustrated at dinner. I said, what's going on? And she's like, I don't know where everything is. I'm like, all right. She's like, I didn't get a chance to get here and map out this whole place and figure out where every single thing is and all the activities. I was like, okay, well, you could do it as you go along. She's like, no, I need to know where everything is so that I can get my money's
Control.
worth.
Control. Yeah.
Control. I can get my money's worth. So the scarcity comes in right there. So this is what happens when you're in that wounded masculine, wounded feminine, because you're looking to get your money's worth. You're looking
And
to
I
stretch
used
your
to
dollar.
do that.
Yeah.
I like I can recognize that looking back. And now
Yeah,
I'm
she's way,
like,
way back there.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
now I'm like, whatever, I just come in late, out early, what it costs, whatever, whatever, whatever. Yeah.
Like
But
I'm
gosh,
like,
that used to be
how big
me.
is my suite, and do I have my slippers and all the things that I need? And like, I'm all about like, my bougie life in there. I'm like, okay, where am I located? Are we at the front of the, ocean front and all those
Yeah.
things? I don't care what the resort has. I'll go to the massages later on, which we did. But it's like someone who lives from that capacity, she's already in a place of not receiving because she's trying to control everything. She feels like she's already behind the eight ball. So her scarcity already came up. Like I have not I have to get everything done in order for me to get my money's worth. And this is that wounded feminine. That's that wounded masculine. It's like she's not
Mhm.
allowing herself to just be
Yeah.
and receive and enjoy. It's already figured out in her head that if she doesn't do all these things, it won't be a great vacation.
I mean, I think you just nailed it, like such a red flag for people, just that literally quote unquote, I got to get my money's worth, or even is it going to be worth it, right? Like that
100,
we're looking for that exchange of I'm giving this and getting this, and we're kind of
100.
scorekeeping. And I know that when I've stepped out of that, it's a whole nother world. Like it's not
Whole
even a
nother world.
thought in your brain, you know?
No, most of these women only buy from need. They don't buy from desire. This is the trick. So if they don't buy from if because they don't know how to tap into their emotions to find out what they actually desire. When you're
Mhm.
buying from need, it's like, okay, well, they'll buy a watch because they'll have value in a Rolex, right? They'll buy their Mercedes because it's like, a statement thing. And
Right.
they'll buy property. But if you go, maybe that one or two Louis Vuitton, like let's say, but for her to actually live in a life of like unlimited wealth or just live into a place of abundance, it's hard for her because she has these imposed limits and the exchange of the ROI for everything.
Right.
Everything has
Right.
to come. So this is why she doesn't know how to receive. So everything has to be an ROI. One woman who was joining my mastermind, she wanted to join my mastermind. I told her the price and she was like, is that like a year long thing? And when she was at a, she's like, so she's like, is it a lifetime amount? I was like, no, honey, that's just for a year, but she was looking to see like, well, what do you get for that? And
Right.
it's like, and I get it because that's where her mindset is. And this woman makes $1.5 million a year. So I
Yeah.
get it, but whoops, sorry. I get it, but it's like, you have to probably edit that out, but sorry. we,
That's okay.
I get what she's saying, but it's sort of like she's looking for that exchange, and she's also working in her business nonstop, and she has a manager, she has the people that are there to run it, but she can't let go of the reins. She
Right.
can't just let herself go receive. And she's like, wow, you're going to the gym, you're doing all things. I'm like, what is life for? If how am I a multimillionaire and I'm not going to the gym, taking
Right.
trips once a month, buying whatever I want, doing all the things? If
Yeah.
if I'm
What's
not
it all
living
for?
if I'm not living like this, then I'm doing it wrong in my opinion. And I'm still somebody who's like, I went to Vegas for a marketing mindset, my mastermind for one day to figure out how to improve my marketing. I'm going to go maybe to Mexico again to do something else. Like I'm constantly trying to improve myself in that way. But at the same time, I don't start any calls before 12,
Yes.
I,
Love, 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 love it. So let me just ask you this. So for the audience listening and everyone that needs this, which I think is like every single person on the planet, what are the different, how can people work with you? What are the different options? I know you have a ton of courses online, which are so awesome. So you've got
we,
lots of courses. What are the other options?
we have a ton of things. First thing, my Forbes article just came out. I would love you guys to go listen, read that. It's all about receiving, and
Oh,
it's a real
congratulations.
article. So it's like, it's not like a partnership. It was like a woman who actually loved my work, and her name is Bianca, and she's a journalist, and she's actually from London, and she loved my work. And so she wrote an entire article on Forbes. So go read it. It's a great start. I think it'll start putting you into a place like, oh, this is here. Um,
Yeah.
we have a mastermind, but I also have like a 6 month program, which is if you want to get started on your emotional mastery, you want to balance your masculine and feminine, you want to get out of scarcity, and you can get into more of the abundance. We have tons of millionaires in this program. It's called the Millionaire Mindset. And we have
Mhm.
regular people in there, people who don't even have a business yet. It's for everybody who wants to get started. There's a 6 month program there. You guys can message us about that or the mastermind. Um, And join my Quantum Woman group. I think it's a great place to start. We have a lot of free trainings in there, and we usually have a 3-day masterclass every month. I would say jump into that. It's always a low ticket to come into my world. You'll have a shift. I always teach real stuff. I'm not somebody that sits there and just blah 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 blah. I actually give you some good stuff. And go listen to my podcast.
Yeah.
Go listen to it is being renamed to Unapologetically Rich, but it used to be called The Quantum Woman. Go listen to it. It's under Shamina Taylor, and get my book, Unlocking the Quantum Woman. It is right here. I have a
It
copy.
is gold. It is absolute
If you
gold.
haven't read it yet, I mean, go read this book. It will change your life, and it's everybody who's read it. You've read it? Have you been reading it? I don't know.
I've read it. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, good.
Absolutely amazing. And I've got it yeah, I've got it on Kindle and I've got the regular
I
version.
love it.
So,
I'm recording
so
the audio next week, so you guys it'll be on Audible soon.
well,
Yeah.
and I
So
just want to acknowledge what you just said. Like coming into and opting into anything, you're going to have a shift. I mean, when I started opting in, and I think the first thing, I mean, I'm a ridiculously busy person. Like every hour is like usually blocked in my calendar, but somehow I find a way to do your like 2 hour, 3 day master class. I'm like, I need this so badly. And I mean, I was writing down things and having breakthroughs
amazing.
like that I've never had in 46 years. That
Oh,
I mean that, Shamina. Like I was talking to my husband in the
that makes me
evening.
want to cry because
I
I
was
love when a
making
woman has this like
connections that I was like, I didn't understand that this and this. I didn't understand that maybe there was there was, I was teased when I was in like 1 year. I was like the popular girl, but there was one random year where like my best friend left the school and I got kind of teased slash bullied. If you I hate to use that word because it seems so strong. But I'm like, oh, I think there's a lot. That was a hard year for me. And I've just kind of swept it under the rug, right? There was lots of things that I've just swept under the rug because I just like, you know, just armor up and get
that's
through
what
it.
we do. We just
Armor
pick
up
up
and
and
get
go.
through it.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's another important thing for the audience to hear is, I had addiction, I had eating disorders, I had all of these horrible things that I've walked through that were so hard to overcome. And it's always been hard for me because people are like, "Oh, were you abused? Oh, was there neglect? Oh, was there?" And I'm like, "No, no, no." Like I used to say for so many years, like there was really nothing in my childhood that could have pointed to this.
Where do you land in how many siblings do you have? Oh, sorry. Go.
I'm the baby of six, three
Okay.
half,
I
two
already
full.
know. I already know why. Okay, keep going. What we're gonna
Yeah,
say.
well, and it's so interesting to me because that's what I'm trying to say is I think it's these more subtler things that like I was, and this is probably what you're going to say. I was kind of disregarded a
Of
lot. Like,
course you were.
I mean, I had this incredible loving Irish Catholic family in this home, but like I'd be like, "Mom," and I can just remember her being like, oh, Moira," like kind of pushing me aside because she had so much to deal with and but being disregarded or being shushed or being kind of like eyes rolled, like,
That's a
like,
that's a like a low grade abuse, and that's where your trauma comes from. And
right.
so, but I hit the nail on the head. Like when she said shit, I already the first question I asked her was, where does she lie? Because I already knew she was probably the baby, or she was in the middle. And so just growing up, what kids need, and this is just a small little thing I'm just going to give to you, but what kids need is to be seen.
Yeah.
They want to be witnessed. They want to be, and if you've got 6 children, we've got 6 different identities, we've got six different personalities, we've got 6 different behaviors, 6 different experiences happening at the same time. And you want to be this, like you particularly probably did get a lot more attention in a different way
Right.
because you are the baby. But
Mhm.
it's like, I just want to be special. And that's what most women want is they want to be special and they want to be different. They want to be seen as they're like, you love just me, like I'm
Right.
just me, right? And so it's like, so we crave that. And so then we go out seeking it. And
Yep.
and addiction came probably from, you probably trauma bonded with people, you were trying to control things, the eating disorder came up. I mean, all those things compounded the initial things that were starting when you were younger. And
Yeah.
I bet you your siblings helped raise you at some point too. So there was like a lot of dynamics that happened there. I mean, there's so much to unpack with that. But I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
But that is why you're like, no, I'm going to show you what I can do. Like,
Right.
I'm not going to be, and coming from an Irish family, like that, bring that in there. Like, you people aren't weak. It's like,
Right.
I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how I'm going to make you pay attention to me. You're going to watch me. You're going to listen to me. You're not going to, and that proving energy and that the wounded masculine started at a really young age.
Yeah. Not to mention a German Navy nurse for a mom.
Well, there we have it. Like
Up
that,
as
and the
freaking
book
yeah.
closes.
Yeah.
And
And the
because you
book closes.
because you bring in that, okay, so anybody who has like a historical, like, type of
Mhm.
I, my Polish, my Russian, my
Yeah. Yeah.
German, it's like, don't feel emotions. Like, you better
Yes.
just keep going. Like, we're tough women kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that, over the years, because it probably wasn't your mom, it was like
Generations
basically
back.
watering down the feminine all the way, because we have to do, because women were told to do. When men went to way to war, women had to just, they had to pick up the pieces. They couldn't do everything themselves. I mean, sorry, they couldn't have help, so they had to do
Right.
everything themselves. So it's just conditioning. This
Yeah.
is like DNA stuff. And so you're breaking a generational thing by you doing this.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's huge. So, 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 so huge. Gosh, I want to keep going, but I'm gonna
Well,
wrap
come
it
into
up.
my world. Come into my world. You know how to
I'm
find
coming,
me.
girl. I'm
Book a
there.
call and come join us.
I am there
Okay.
100%. Oh my gosh, Shamina, thank you. Like, just thank you for stepping into this work. Thank you for stepping into the world with this work. I mean, you walked away from a career as an attorney. Not many people could make that leap.
That was
And
hard.
yeah, I'm sure it was hard, but like, gosh, the world needs this work so desperately. And I know that leap because I've made that leap myself. And I'm just so grateful that you've made that leap. I'm so grateful that this is ready and available for the world. Because honestly, I feel like like I said, I bumped up against it in different places throughout my whole life, but it's not been, and I hesitate to use the word packaged this way, but it's not been delivered and taught in this way ever. Ever have I seen it. And like the world needs it. So thank you.
I love you. This is so awesome. This is so great. Thank you so much. I wanted to just say one thing about the
Yeah.
vulnerability. If you can, just one thing today, as women listening, just maybe ask for help, or just let someone give you a compliment, or just receive. If you can allow yourself to just bring this barrier down just for just a little bit and
Mm.
see how it feels, even if it challenges you and you feel like, oh, that was so much, go journal on it. Go figure out why is this coming up, and just allow yourself to witness it without judgment. If you can just witness your emotions without judgment, you're going to see just a small shift in your lives. Anyways, thank you so much for having me. I love this. And you're gonna be on my
Thank
show
you,
now.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so all the show notes, all the links, all the places to connect with Shamina, they're all in the show notes, her Instagram, her website, everything. So go check it out. If you listen to this episode and you love it, tag Shamina, tag me, DM us. We want to hear from you. And thanks again for joining us. And we will see you guys next week.